Chapter 14 of the Tale of Grandfather Mole. Read for LibriVox.org. The Tale of Grandfather Mole by Arthur Scott Bailey. Chapter 14 The New Sunshade. Grandfather Mole was resting in the shade of a toadstool. It was a stifling sultry day, and having come up into the garden on some errand or other, Grandfather Mole had found the sunshine upon his back altogether too hot for his liking. He was thinking how comfortable his own cool, dark chambers were, and wondering why anybody should prefer to live above ground in the heat, when a voice called to him, "What a fine umbrella you have! It must be a handy thing to have in one's family." It was Mr. Meadow Mouse speaking, and since Grandfather Mole knew him to be a harmless sort of person, he asked him to come over and join him. "To be sure, there's not room enough for two under my sunshade," Grandfather Mole said, "but you can stand just outside it, and perhaps the sight of me in the shade may help you to feel cooler, even if you are in the sun." Well, Mr. Meadow Mouse smiled a bit, all to himself. He knew that Grandfather Mole was odd, and being a good-natured person and wishing to please Grandfather Mole, Mr. Meadow Mouse joined him. "What do you think of it now?" Grandfather Mole demanded of Mr. Meadow Mouse, almost as soon as he had stepped just outside the shade of the toadstool. "Don't you feel cooler already? I shouldn't care to stay in the garden a second without this sunshade." Mr. Meadow Mouse wanted to be polite, so he replied that perhaps he did feel a bit more comfortable. "You ought to own one of these," said Grandfather Mole. "I've heard they're not always easy to find," Mr. Meadow Mouse remarked. "That's true," Grandfather agreed. You don't use this one all the time, do you?" Mr. Meadow Mouse inquired. "No," Grandfather Mole answered, "not when it rains." "Then," said Mr. Meadow Mouse, "maybe you'll let me borrow your umbrella, or sunshade, as you call it, some rainy day." "Certainly. You shall take it the next time it rains," Grandfather promised. As Mr. Meadow Mouse murmured, "Thank you," he looked up at the sky with a knowing eye. He could see signs there, but of course Grandfather Mole had never seen the sky in all his life. "The very next time it rains," Mr. Meadow Mouse repeated, as if he wanted to be sure there was no misunderstanding about it. "Certainly, certainly," Grandfather Mole said, "and as I've remarked before, I'd be glad to let you come under the sunshade now beside me, if there was only room enough for both of us." "You needn't trouble yourself," Mr. Meadow Mouse told him, and once more he scanned the sky eagerly. "What's that?" Grandfather Mole cried suddenly, as he started up in alarm. "What struck the top of my sunshade?" "I don't know," said Mr. Meadow Mouse. "I don't know what it was, unless it was a raindrop." Chapter 14